Welcome back to this special edition of ABC-7 Xtra Sunday Edition. We continue our discussion debate format with the three mayoral candidates hoping to replace our current mayor. Joining us is incumbent Mayor Dee Margo, former Mayor Oscar Leeser, attorney Veronica Carvajal, and former city planner Carlos Gallinard. We will begin this next question with you, Mr. Gallinard. In 2012, voters approved quality of life projects. However, the cost of these projects were under budgeted. Your thoughts on city leaders issuing certificates of obligation to pay for these projects?
First of all, Saul, great question. I, like many El Paso voters, voted for this quality of life bond project. I was looking forward to the Children's Museum, the Multi-Purpose Cultural Center, and the Mexican American Cultural Center. We know now that 8 years later, those projects are not completed. We have to look at the previous administration. They did not start nor complete these projects. And so I, like many El Pasoans, are disappointed. I was looking forward to having these great amenities in the city of El Paso to make sure that we're on a different trajectory. We know now that they're not finished, and so we have to look at those projects. That is exactly right. We will not be issuing additional debt, nor will we be increasing taxes, something that the two previous administrations have been doing. Taxpayers deserve some relief. Taxpayers deserve some truth about these projects. And so we need to make sure that if we're going to move forward on these projects, that we're being honest with the taxpayers about the true cost of these projects.
Mr. Leeser.
You know, it's a great question, because in 2012, they came out to the voters with almost $500 million worth of quality of life bonds, and unfortunately, they had no operating and maintenance. They were way under budgeted, and really, they misled the public, because the public went out and voted that they would get these things. These things were scheduled to be rolled out up to 10 to 15 years, and they didn't take into consideration the cost of labor, the cost of material 10 or 15 years later. So it's very unfortunate that when they were planned, when they were brought out, they were totally under budgeted. They were totally misled the public into voting for something that wasn't properly budgeted. So I don't believe that we should issue certificates of obligations, because we told the voters, if you vote on this, we will not issue certificates of obligation to complete these projects, even though that they misled and lied to the public and told them that they were properly budgeted, properly sent out, and even though they had no maintenance and operation on them.
Mayor Margo?
As others have said, 70% of us voted for those projects. It's frustrating that they have not been completed to the extent they should be. Under my regime, we have completed 222 of the quality of life projects, and under Mayor Leeser, there was only 8 projects completed. That's part of the issue. They were not budgeted correctly. They did not account for operations and maintenance. In our public safety bond this last November for $413 million for police and fire, we included operations and maintenance in that. The only safe way to raise funds for the Multipurpose Special Events Center will be for naming rights and sponsorships and those kind of public-private partnerships that we're going to need to build that appropriately, to use it for convention space as well as for concerts and sporting events.
Ms. Carvajal?
So to clarify, certificates of obligation, or COs, are not voted on by the voters. The bond was voted on. The COs, prior to Dee Margo, were used only as emergency funds. Mr. Margo has decided to start using them for things like the planned sports arena and other projects. The problem is that COs, like the bond, come from property taxes. That's how they get paid back. And so we have to take them very seriously and not use them for vanity projects, especially things like the arena. I don't believe these projects were under budgeted. If we take out the sports arena component of the $228 million, we get to have our 3 signature projects and the improvements to the other properties. We get to have our Children's Museum fully funded, our Mexican American Cultural Center fully funded, and a performing arts facility fully funded, whether it's the Abraham Chavez or the Convention Center.
Thank you. This next question is, are you in favor or opposed to the construction of the downtown arena in the Duranguito district? I will begin with you, Mr. Leeser. Mr. Leeser?
Yeah, well, the voters voted over 70% for Performing Arts Center, and we need to provide a Performing Arts Center for the voters. We need to do what we told the voters we were going to do. So I have proposed that we take that and incorporate it with Abraham Chavez. And we go out and we redo the convention center. The convention center was built in the 70s, and it was supposed to be two stages. We've only done the first stage. It really does not, it's not adequate enough to have conventions, not adequate enough to host people. We need to do a return on investment to our citizens. So to go out and incorporate it to one of the biggest jewels in the city, which is the Abraham Chavez, and then go out and incorporate it to the Civic Center, which is really way overdue to be done, and to bring conventions to El Paso, because we have a lot of businesses that have invested all over the city, hotels downtown, businesses that have opened all over the city, but they cannot bring conventions and people to utilize our community.
Mr. Mayor.
We're planning on doing the Mexican-American Cultural Center as an additional addition to the downtown library. We looked at the Abraham Chavez Theater, and we found out to redo it would cost $40 million, but yet to do the Mexican-American Cultural Center as an additional building expansion of the existing library would only be $20 million. We are 40,000 square feet deficient short in our convention space. We need the multipurpose special event center for convention space. We need it for concerts, which is, prior to the pandemic, was where most communities were making their dollars on events. And we also need it for sporting events. But we can do that with sponsorships. And with all due respect to my opponents, you're entitled to your own opinion, not your own facts. There have been no collateral obligation bonds issued for the Multipurpose Special Events Center or any of those projects.
Ms. Carvajal.
So I have been litigating this issue for over 3 years, and we know that the court said that sports could be a component of the performing arts entertainment facility. It is not a requirement. So I am opposed to including it because for a number of reasons, but one of them is the fact that it is expensive, as I explained before. It is consuming a lot of the funding that we could use for the other projects the community is desperately in need of, especially with the MAC. We need to be celebrating our Mexican-American culture more than ever. And I know for a fact, because I was as part of the litigation, we cross-examined the city's expert. This is only a 2,000-seat larger arena than Don Haskins. The city inflated the number of concerts that it was going to bring to the community. We know that it is going to offer maybe 60 days out of the year of concert venues. So this is not going to be a moneymaker any more than the convention center turned out to be a moneymaker. Thank you.
Mr. Gallina.
Saul, you know, again, like many El Pasoans, I was disappointed that these things have not gotten built. Thank you, Mr. Leeser. Thank you, Mr. Margo. You know, we need to be honest with the taxpayers. This project has now doubled in cost, and I will not issue additional debt or additional taxes to pay for it. I think it is irresponsible. However, we need to invest in people. Let's make sure that we still have a robust downtown. Let's make sure that we are doing hike and bike trails that are going to make people happier and healthier, and then also invite people to El Paso to spend money. There is no reason why, as mayor, we cannot figure these things out. You just heard the two incumbents talk about cost overruns, talk about not having enough money for maintenance. Well, guess what? As mayor, those are the things that you are elected to do, to figure things out, to move projects forward. I think it is irresponsible what the city has done over the past 8 years. Now it's 2020. We need to move forward and build our city to the greatest capacity.
Mr. Mayor, I will give you 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Again, we're not using COs. We haven't used COs. The issue is that eventually the Haskins Center is deteriorating. It was built in the 70s. We need the space. We need the draw for downtown. That's how you attract sales tax revenues. And we got our hotels now open, and that the multipurpose special event center will allow us to attract large conventions.
Candidates, thank you. You're watching ABC-7 Xtra. Still ahead, we'll pick up where we left off, then permit candidates to ask each other a question. You're watching ABC-7 Xtra Sunday edition with your voice, your vote.